I woke up to the smell of burning oil and the sight of a bonfire in my front yard, except it wasn't a bonfire. It was my tractor. Old Betsy, my faithful workhorse for nearly 20 years, was now a flaming sacrifice to the homeowners association. Until that moment, I'd thought of them as little more than a nuisance. Now, standing barefoot in the damp grass with my robe flapping in the wind, I watched years of grease, rust, and memory curl into black smoke. On the sidewalk stood a smug cluster of HOA members, whispering like they'd just done the neighborhood a favor. At the center was their queen bee, arms crossed over her designer blazer, expression caught between fake sympathy and sheer arrogance. Her name was Catherine Whitmore, the self-appointed ruler of Maplewood Estates. She looked at me as if I were some stray mutt who'd soiled her marble floors. "This is what happens, Mr. Anderson," she said, voice dripping with the smug sweetness of someone who enjoys bad news. "When people refuse to follow community guidelines." My fists curled at my sides, not because I solve things with fists. I don't. But the rage boiling inside me needed somewhere to go. "You burned my tractor," I said, voice steady enough to cut steel. Catherine blinked, then forced her plastic smile. "It was a community decision. You were given ample opportunity to remove that eyesore. We enforce aesthetic harmony in Maplewood. You left us no choice." I drew a slow breath, heart pounding, but my mind was already past the flames, past the smell of burning rubber, past their smug faces. I turned, walked inside, and shut the door. No shouting, no threats. Catherine probably thought she'd won, that I'd accepted punishment like a scolded child. She had no idea she had just declared war. Inside my office, I lifted the lid of an old storage chest. Dust puffed out as I pulled free a neatly folded uniform, a badge, and a thick binder of fire codes. My grin was slow, cold. For 30 years I'd served as a fire marshal, and I knew one universal truth: every HOA is a fire hazard waiting to happen. Now I was about to make their lives hell. 3 weeks earlier. The first letter had arrived 3 weeks earlier. A pretentious little notice printed on letterhead with the HOA's ridiculous tree logo in the corner. "Dear Mr. Anderson, as a resident of Maplewood Estates, you are required to comply with all community guidelines. We have noticed several violations, including but not limited to an unauthorized dilapidated agricultural vehicle in public view, failure to maintain landscaping, and repeated refusal to register as an HOA member. Please remit the attached membership fee and ensure compliance by the end of the month. Failure to do so will result in escalating enforcement measures. Sincerely, Catherine Whitmore, HOA President." I had laughed aloud. I wasn't a member. I'd lived here before Maplewood Estates even existed. My land, my house, my rights. Escalating enforcement measures sounded like a toddler tantrum written with a thesaurus. I ignored it. More letters followed, stuffed under my door, taped to my truck windshield. Once I even found one pinned to my dog's collar. Then they showed up in person. Catherine with her enforcer, Douglas Crane, the self-important compliance officer. Saturday afternoon, they stood on my porch like they were performing an exorcism. "Mr. Anderson," Catherine began in her fake patient tone, "I assume you've received our notices." "I have," I said, leaning on the railing, beer in hand. "You are in violation of multiple HOA policies," Douglas declared. He gestured at my yard as if presenting a crime scene. "Your grass exceeds the blade height allowance. Your mailbox is not regulation. And that," he pointed dramatically at Betsy, my tractor, "is an unregistered agricultural vehicle." "It's a tractor," I replied. "It does not meet aesthetic standards for a modern residential area," he snapped. I took a sip. Aesthetic standards. This is the same town where someone welded a 12-foot metal chicken in their front yard. That's art, but my tractor's an abomination. Catherine pursed her lips. "If you do not join the HOA and comply, we will be forced to take action." I waved them off, laughing. And now Betsy was ashes. The fire marshal awakens. By afternoon, the fire was out, but my fury wasn't. I gathered evidence, photos, security footage, everything. Because this wasn't some petty neighborhood spat anymore. This was arson, property damage, harassment, conspiracy. I called an old friend, Captain Wallace at the fire department. "I need a formal inspection of Maplewood Estates," I said. "What's going on, Hank?" "Let's just say," I muttered, staring at Betsy's charred frame, "some folks forgot what the fire code looks like." The next morning, I sat on my porch sipping coffee as Douglas and his clipboard brigade strutted down the street. Clipboards in hand, jotting down imaginary violations. People like him always reminded me of rookie firefighters, the ones who loved writing reports but froze in real emergencies. Douglas stopped at my yard, made a show of scribbling notes, and shook his head disapprovingly. I waved. He scowled. Good, let him stew. Because soon his clipboard army was about to face a real inspection. I spent the morning digging through my notes, logging every fire hazard in Maplewood. It didn't take long. Unapproved propane tanks too close to homes, wooden fences too high, perfect for fire spread, hydrants blocked by landscaping, narrowed lanes that couldn't fit a fire truck. Their perfect neighborhood was a tinderbox. The irony made me laugh until my chest hurt. They burned my tractor in the name of safety while living in a giant fire trap. Captain Wallace agreed to send his team that week. That was all I needed. The smoking gun. That evening, another envelope arrived. Final warning. Now they threatened eviction from the community for noncompliance. Evict me. From my own house, built before Maplewood even existed. Catherine had lost her mind. But I didn't just laugh this time. I went back to my security footage. I zoomed in frame by frame until I found what I needed. A shadow too close to Betsy moments before the blaze. Enhanced. There it was, Douglas Crane's smug face, illuminated by firelight, a lighter flickering in his hand. Perfect. Firestorm. The next day, chaos erupted. Fire trucks rolled into Maplewood unannounced. Inspectors marked violations with bright red stickers. Hydrants, fences, propane tanks, all documented. Neighbors peered through blinds, confused, angry. Catherine stormed out, demanding answers. Wallace flashed his badge. Formal investigation underway. Douglas tried to sneak to his car. I intercepted him. "You know," I said casually, leaning on his door, "arson's a serious crime." He blustered, "I don't know what you're talking about." I played the footage on my phone. His face drained of color. I smiled, "I do." He babbled excuses, calling it an accident, claiming he was just checking property. I let him dig the hole deeper, then offered him a choice: confess or I turn it over to the department. He cracked instantly. "Catherine told me to." Later that night, Catherine called an emergency meeting. I wasn't invited. I went anyway. The board bickered about how to handle violations. Catherine, red-faced, tried to downplay everything. I cleared my throat. The room went silent. "Looks like you've got problems," I said. "Violations, fines, criminal charges, and arson." "This is private, Mr. Anderson," Catherine hissed. "Yeah, and that hydrant outside with a tree blocking it is private too, right? We all got problems." One board member stammered, "What do you want?" "Resign. Dismantle the HOA before it collapses on its own." "That will never happen," Catherine scoffed. I nodded. "Then I'll let the fire department, the state marshal, and the police handle it." "Oh, and this video." I pressed play again. Douglas, lighter in hand. The silence was delicious. "You'll regret this," Catherine whispered. I shrugged. "You burned my tractor." Collapse. By morning, Maplewood felt different. The smug order had turned to unease. Inspection reports arrived at every doorstep. Homeowners realized the same HOA they worshipped had doomed them with thousands in citations. Panic replaced arrogance. By noon, word spread about Douglas's confession, and when the local news van showed up, the neighborhood imploded. Former fire marshal exposes major safety violations and possible arson, the reporter said into her mic. Neighbors shouted in the background, waving citations. "We paid them to keep us safe," one woman snapped, "and they put us in danger." Catherine refused to appear, barricading herself in the HOA office like a cornered general. That night the office itself caught fire. Sirens wailed. Neighbors watched in stunned silence as flames devoured the very building that housed all their rules and fines. Douglas tried to run. Police tackled him before he hit the corner. Catherine wasn't far behind, arrested the next morning for conspiracy, fraud, negligence. They hauled her out in cuffs while neighbors stood silently watching. No cheers, no jeers, just the end of her reign. Aftermath. Within weeks, the city disbanded the HOA entirely. The board resigned in disgrace. Neighbors who once lorded over mailbox colors and grass height now painted their houses whatever color they wanted, free at last. One afternoon, as I worked on my new tractor, Betsy too, shinier and stronger, Captain Wallace stopped by. "In all my years," he said, shaking his head, "never seen one man take down an entire HOA." I smirked. Guess there's a first time for everything. He told me the final reports showed years of falsified inspections. The city isn't just shutting them down. They're planning a full redevelopment. "So what you're saying," I asked, "is I made Maplewood safer?" "Something like that," he said. "Hank, ever think of coming back? Maybe not full-time, but as an advisor. We could use a guy like you." I looked at Betsy too, at the quiet street, at neighbors finally free. I smirked. "Well," I said, "seeing as I just saved a whole neighborhood, why not?"